Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, viewers from wherever you're watching us from. It's your host, Jermaine, here, Wima Sports. Today we have a guest speaker, and this is a guest speaker who has transitioned through many countries. He's someone who's passionate about sports, and indeed he's doing a lot in the sporting world in Africa. He has a heart for Africa, and he's known none other than Dan. And from Dankind Academy, you'll get to know more about how Dan and Dankind Academy comes to be one thing. Much welcome, sir.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate being here. So.
Yeah, thank you. So maybe if you just tell us about how did the vision of Dan and Dankind Academy come?
So I was born in England, obviously, which is mainly a football country. But the main inspiration for the project was Deng, who was a refugee in London. Growing up, I just assumed he was like one of many black kids in Brixton at the time, and was just English. He was playing for Great Britain, so I just assumed he was British. But I think my interest in Africa really started when I discovered that he was a refugee from South Sudan. Obviously, in my family, my grandfather is Jamaican. So growing up in England and in the Western world, as far as education goes, mainstream education, you don't really get to know that much about Africa. So basically all I knew about Africa was that that's where my ancestors were stolen from once upon a time. But because of Deng, I really started to discover more and more about what was going on, not just in South Sudan, but in East Africa in general. So I started to learn about the Civil War, the state of affairs there, and the fact that many of these South Sudanese had fled to places like Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda. So at the time I was working for my father, who was running a charity in England, and I was just reading more and more about Africa, African basketball in general. And at that time, really, there was only certain things like Basketball Without Borders and Giants of Africa that were going on, and I just thought, that there was something that I could do. Like if I was already using basketball as a vehicle for progress in England, why not go and see what I could do in a place where, according to all the articles that I read, were lacking in infrastructure, didn't have the right resources, coaches weren't being trained. But once again, I didn't know anything about the actual situation, so I wanted to go out and try and discover it for myself. So, yeah. And did you play actively? Do you have a sport that you participated in? Yeah, so
growing up?
Both of my parents actually were professional basketball players. That's where they met, playing for Manchester United. So they both played for England, they played for Great Britain. I was born in England, but I actually grew up in France. But despite that, I was playing basketball for the American School of Paris. So amongst international schools, I wasn't playing in the French league or in that system, and I wasn't in the English league, but it just so happened that the coach for the national team in England was also a coach for one of these international schools, and had played with my parents. So I never went through any of the trials, or I was kind of an outsider in the English basketball community and the French basketball community. But yeah, I played under-18s basketball for the England national team, and then played at university in Canada as well. But then after that, I went straight into the coaching. Like I said before, my dad was running a charity involving sports. So very quickly I became a coach, a fundraiser, and then the idea of Dankind came. So I kind of skipped the whole phase that most athletes go through, where they play out their career and then they decide that they want to get into coaching or whatever. I kind of skipped that part and really knew that I wanted to be in a management position.
Just on a light note, viewers, as we were setting up, me and the person behind the camera is called Jared. We were making some fun about some French words. We didn't know that is.
Yeah. So yeah.
You could hear us spoil the language, eh?
Yeah. I went to international schools in France, but my sister speaks fluent French too. My mother's still there, so I kind of immersed myself in the French basketball community later on in life, but from a filming point of view, we are ballers. So.
Okay. Yeah, so you got into that, you you skipped the phase that most athletes go through, and now you're thinking about the academy. So if you can just explain to us briefly maybe on what was the transition phase like for you. And I imagine at that time, we already talked at that time, I know you were young. Most young people of that age are not thinking about such stuff. So what made it different for you?
Well, like I said before, being an outsider in both basketball communities, I looked up to guys like Tony Parker and Boris Diaw, and the INSET program in France was what I still to this day think is kind of the program to be copied, and that's the way forward for Africa. It's about National Institutes of Sport and sports academies, where obviously my area of expertise is basketball, and they deal with all sports. But I was always looking at INSEP from a point of, accommodating players from a young age, training them, having all the infrastructure that they need around them, the right coaches, etc. And I thought that from the beginning that would be the solution in Africa. But my original idea was to bring players to France and attach them to a French club team. But this was in 2011, literally the year that South Sudan had just got its independence. So I set up Dankind Academy originally as a charity in France, but there was no embassy even at the time. It was a Sudanese embassy, but there was no South Sudanese embassy. And so it was going to be impossible to basically bring players over. But then I had the idea of to see what I could do over there. So I started just literally Googling Kenyan basketball, South Sudanese basketball, East African basketball in general. That's when I came across just a YouTube video of a guy called James Matian.
Yeah.
And that was basically, at the time, also the only video there was of someone from South Sudan. So it was just a quick highlight video. So it happens that all of those clips are from Uganda, when he was in Uganda actually. But then I added him on Facebook, and we just started to talk. And it was from there that the ideas started to roll. He was living in Nairobi at the time. He was going to NIS on scholarship. He was telling me about how there were so many South Sudanese, tall guys, 7-footers all over the place. They're all refugees, and that there was a basketball community in Nairobi. There was a league, there was a Kenyan league. So I knew none of this, I knew none of this, and so it was a whole learning experience and process for me. But it was, from there, I just decided to make a trip. So actually, the athletic director at the International School of Kenya used to be an assistant coach at the American School of London, which is a team that I played against in my league. So it just so happens that was one contact that I already had. And there'd already been a relationship between the American School of Paris and ISK. So my mother, for example, did shoe drives where she would get kids, all shoes that didn't fit them anymore, instead of them throwing them away, to donate them and then to bring them. And then so the first trip I made over, we did that, and we distributed all these shoes that my mother had donated, and the kids from ASP had donated. So I came over, and then I just wanted to basically run camps. So I remember Anwan was there at the time, which was awesome. So I went to Nyama for the first time. I saw that, and then I was just trying to get a feel of what kinds of guys were out there. And that was the first time I picked up a camera too. So I wanted to film guys straight away, to have highlights, to be able to show people that would be interested in funding Dankind what was going on there.
So Kenya was the first home for Dankind in East Africa.
Yeah, so from there, basically we, I saw how many talented players there were, not just South Sudanese, but Kenyans too, Congolese, that were just looking for an opportunity to use basketball as a way to get their education, They wanted to be basketball players, but they also wanted to use it to get scholarships. And I just knew from seeing these guys the first time that I went over that, there was something to it, like this could work. So from there, I went back. I was tutoring. I was doing after-school tutoring with young kids to make money. But most of that money then I was sending to Kenya to take care of guys in a house, and to have coaches train them at railways, so that they had transport money, and then the next phase was to literally come to Kenya and find a place where we could be doing this on a daily basis, far into the future, and that happened. So I came back and we literally searched all over Nairobi for a place to host daily sessions, and we did that at, we found Moi International Sports Center, so
which is the Kasarani Stadium right now.
Kasarani Stadium. That's Safaricom, I think, took it over. So at the time, I was dealing with stadium management to get court time, and then I just found a house close by, not too far from USIU. So we found a 6-bedroom house where we could all live together, a whole team, coaches, hired a cook, a cleaner, and we registered into the NBA, so in the Nairobi Basketball Association, and then we were ready to go. The first coaches we had were Abel and Joe and Dino. We had, the jerseys. We knew that we were going to be taking the tattoos to every game. We wanted to host Wednesday friendly games, and then I was obviously managing the whole project, but I knew that we also needed highlights. So I left the coaching to the coaches, and then I kind of adopted, on top of being the manager of the project, kind of adopted the filming, the social media, developing the website, and I was working on fundraising booklets. I was working on trying to find sponsors, and obviously I was fortunate enough to have grown up going to an international school. I had scholarship because my parents both worked at the school, so it was a great experience for me, but it also meant that I had access now to a network of American and international companies and wealthy people who had the money to send their kids to these private schools, and so I got really lucky because I was able to find sponsors for the project. The Dorsteins were hugely fundamental, the Brennick Myers, in making it possible, because they were the ones who made it so that I could support a whole team for 2 years. And that was everything: electricity, water, transport, registration fees, everything. Everything was taken care of, and we just had to make it happen, which we did.
Just viewers, before we get into the next question, I just want to highlight that you get to see Dan's journey all through into creating the academy and all this, and it's a process. He had to go through different phases. He had to tutor, he had to do all these things to ensure the success of his academy and the success of the lives that he wanted to impact. So I just want to let you know that nothing comes easy, just you have to keep on hitting at it until you figure it out and it comes to work. So maybe Dan, you played for 2 years, the academy that is. How was it in terms of basketball growth for the team from NBA? Did they transition to another tier of the league?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I was still discovering everything, so there was so many things that I'd never experienced before. I mean, there's good and bad things and everything, but yeah, it was just it was a period of adapting. But at the same time, I think we also brought in our own culture and way of doing things. The guys that I chose had all just graduated from high school, and so they were looking for scholarships for the next level, whether that was going to be abroad, whether that was going to be here in Kenya or in Uganda. And I mean, first of all, just an amazing group of guys. Hardworking, passionate, just wanting to make it happen, basically, doing whatever they could, and so the program was designed for them. It wasn't about winning or games or the league or anything originally. The focus was supposed to be on them, to give them an opportunity to flourish. That was the main idea of it, and that's still the main idea of Dankind to this day. That's still the plan and the reason why I do what I do. But yeah, we turned into a family. We really did. I mean, like I said before, we're living in a house together. So we had Mother Mary doing the cooking and the cleaning. We had Coach Joe, and then we brought in an American coach, Kofino. And I think he had an unbelievably huge impact, I think, on Kenyan basketball culture, because he was really bringing all of his expertise from the US, and was just very intense, very discipline-oriented. It wasn't just about winning games, he was about teaching these guys what they have to do to play basketball anywhere.
Yep.
And that's the thing about Dankind too, is these guys turned into a team where it was as much of a team as anywhere else in the world. You know, they were practicing twice a day, hard. They had to be accountable. They had to be on time. We would go to games. We'd arrive 2 hours early. You know, we had a lot of fun, but at the same time, these guys were working hard. You know, at the beginning things were rusty, but they adapted to a real basketball culture. So I mean, Kofino's coached. I think he still has the record of what's now the G League of consecutive wins. Consistency, you know, accountability, to use the same word over again, was really, really important. And that's what he really instilled in these guys. It wasn't just about, oh, you know, we're going to put a team together of big guys that are all talented. Like, these guys were running plays, yeah, I mean, and had to execute. It wasn't about doing things half, you know, way. Everything was done. And I think that changed things, you know, the way we practiced twice a day on an outdoor court. I mean, guys were picking up injuries because they were just giving 120%. Stress fractures, heel problems. So these guys, you know, I think they enjoyed living together. It was kind of like a fraternity. But, you know, just, it was a pleasure to be around them. They all had great attitudes, and we improved. Everyone, I think, in our league could see that we went from being a group of guys that was just put together to a unit. And I think that's what basketball is supposed to be about too. That's the kind of things it's supposed to teach you. Yeah. So I think we did a good job of that. You know, I think we did a good job of taking a group of guys and turning them into a team, into a brotherhood, and them working together to be successful.
So maybe if you mention a few players who you've seen grow from now the academy in Kenya to other now scholarship opportunities, and they've flourished in their careers and other things. Yeah.
I mean, we've had guys go to Japan, we've had guys go to Spain, we've had guys go to the US. So I've even went to visit James Matiang, the first ever player that I was in touch with. He's in Japan now. I went to visit him with my sister last year, and you know, already people there are shocked to see a 6'10" jet black South Sudanese guy towering over everyone. But then he speaks Japanese now. So he went to university on scholarship. First thing that he did was learn the language. And that was kind of nice to see too. It was like a cultural exchange where people were shocked that he could speak Japanese. Or were shocked just to see him in Japan, but then you know, he's made that place his home. Deng Mayor, same thing, went to Spain. He's still there now. He's playing professionally there in the second division, and he's played for the South Sudan national team. We've had guys go to the US, so guys like Dominic, for example, they went through Tony Molden's guidance over there, playing in Texas, playing in Tennessee, played at the junior college level, and then in the NCAA as well. So him, and then obviously we've had guys go on scholarship here in Kenya. Guys like Jared have gone to ANU, Atega did too. And then Uganda, where I am now. One of the main reasons that Dankind is now in Uganda is because 4 of the Dankind players ended up there. 2 of them who used their highlights that I was making here in Kenya to promote themselves as well, and to reach out to coaches. So we had Malvin and Ezra go to Kumba University. We had Lino, who continues to work with Dankind to this day. He went to KIU, and Ater as well, who went to UCU. They're all still there, and these are the guys who explained to me about Uganda and how things were cheaper, how the federation and how the basketball community differed from Kenya. And so yeah, we've had guys go all around. We've had guys play Division I basketball. We've had guys who've gone on to play for the Congolese national team.
So speaking of Uganda now, how is the transitioning from Kenya to Uganda, and how has Uganda been so far? What's the progress that you've made in Uganda so far?
So obviously, the program that was going on here in Kenya, the guys were 18 to 20 years old. We had a team, we were all living together, but we wanted to get kids from a younger age so that we could teach them the fundamentals when they're at that age where they're absorbing everything, learning, and have that potential to reach the highest level. So the focus of the program then shifted towards wanting to have 14 to 18-year-olds, wanting to have a program where we could educate them ourselves, prepare them for their GCSEs and their A-levels so that they would still have access to universities if they didn't make it or they got injured or for whatever reason, and we're still having to go to school in Uganda afterwards, but to prepare them for their SATs so that they could get scholarships to universities in the US. That was the next phase, and so far we've come up with a plan, a 3D model to build our own academy, but not just an academy, it's also going to be an arena and to be used as an East African hub. So the idea is that it's going to be catered towards 48 boys, 48 girls, where they have dormitories, cafeterias, classrooms, outdoor courts to train on, but also an arena. And the arena is to be used by the federation there, a nice indoor arena, and for international, not just domestic competitions, but international competitions too. But at the moment, we're at a phase where we've registered as an NGO there, so we're ready to start fundraising probably in about 2 months from now, because we're also registering in the US, so that we can get tax deductible donations from people in the US and American companies. And basically, in these past 2 years, I went to Kampala to do the same kind of thing, but from a different perspective, as I did in Kenya. When I was in Kenya, I was really concentrated about my guys and what we could do for them, and building the program. And I think one of the mistakes that I made was not immersing myself enough in the KBF and the basketball community here. Whereas when I went to Kampala, I decided to try and get an overview of everything that was already going on there. So I wanted to see how things like the federation worked. You know, I was going to the games, I was filming, trying to make highlights for players and for teams to promote themselves, to gain sponsorship. I was going to Division I games, I was going to high school games, I was going to South Sudan, play for peace tournaments, just to get a kind of gauge of what is going on, what needs to be done, how a program like Dankind Academy could fit into that kind of community, what we could do to enhance the basketball community. And I think we have a really good plan now. But basically for the past 2 years, on top of all of that, I was hosting just scrimmages, so 5-on-5, during the high school holidays. So when high school kids were out of school, we'd rent a court, I'd hire a photographer, we'd have a referee, hire the court, buy some jerseys so that they can split up into teams. And basically anyone was welcome, they could come for free, but the idea was that they get highlights so that they could be sent abroad. And we've had a lot of scholarships. COVID damaged a lot of the stuff that we prepared. Because we had a lot of scholarships of kids, coaches that had seen the videos and highlights and were really interested in these extremely tall, athletic, young kids. So I've just constantly be in touch with more and more coaches that have seen the videos, seen the social media, seen things on Instagram, and have reached out. So we've been hosting those during the high school breaks, and then the rest of the time, I've been editing all of the clips and then getting those ready for these kids.
For transitioning, okay.
So we've looked into land options, and once again the next phase is to fundraise and to get this academy built. That's what it's all been about these past 10 years of trying to figure things out, basically.
So having started in Kenya, gone to Uganda, got involved with everything there in basketball, had a feel of Kenya and Uganda. Is there a difference between the two?
There is a difference, I think to start off with, the number one big difference, I think, is the fan base. I think Uganda probably has the best fan base I've seen from what I've seen of clips and videos of other countries in Africa. I've seen Nyayo packed in Kenya. I've seen it packed for things like the N1, the first thing that I went to see. I've seen it overflowing with people for the Afro-Basket and for things like Friday Night Lights. But generally speaking, us for example, we were playing outdoor at railways or upper hill with not that many people in the crowd, you know. Wasn't like a huge spectator involvement in anything we were doing, and I think that goes all the way to the first division. I've seen Nyayo almost empty a lot of the time, whereas in Uganda, Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, YMCA and the MTN Arena are packed. I mean, people outside can't get in, people standing up on the top row, every seat in the house filled for, and that's for girls' games, that's for men's games. I mean, it's like, it's a real basketball community. So that was the one thing that straight away I noticed and thought, like, these people are really passionate about this sport, much more so, I would say, than in Kenya. The tickets are cheap, but the place is packed, you know, 4 days a week. So that was the first thing that shocked me, and I think the federation in Uganda do a great job too. It's a very passionate group of people who are really putting basketball first. It's not, they're not trying to turn it into a corrupt and selfish business. They're there to make basketball better. Obviously money is involved. We all need money to make everything work. Without money you can't get anything done. So everyone is trying to, you know, get sponsorship, get money into the sport to develop it. Obviously in both places I think the infrastructure is still lacking. Once again, in Uganda, the MTN Arena is quite small. The federation are not in control of it. I think Kenya has the same issues, where places like Nyayo, when they're rented out by churches or, you know, volleyball are using it. Nothing against churches and volleyball, but it's just, I think, to develop a sport and to really take a sport to a whole other level, you need to have at least your own arena or indoor place where people, you know, a wood floor. I think those things matter. Nyayo is getting old. Unfortunately, Moi, which we try to use on a daily basis too, is neglected as far as basketball goes. It's hardly used when I was there, it's hardly used now, and it's a shame because that is a legit indoor stadium. So I think that it's a shame that that's not used more often, and that games end up being playing outdoor on courts that are beat up. To be totally honest, on courts that you just would not allow in Europe, for example. In France, just safety codes, safety and security, you wouldn't be allowed to have those courts existing. They would have to get either maintained or destroyed. Seems like, you know, it seems like, I think those are the next steps. Obviously places like Rwanda have these amazing stadiums right now. I know that Giants of Africa are doing a great job too by trying to build all of these courts everywhere. That's going to make a huge impact. Infrastructure is the main issue, I think. Not just in Kenya and Uganda, but I think in Africa in general.
Wakenya mmesikia mtoke game bwana. You need to fill the stadiums anyway.
Yeah, people come out, come
out, man. You need to fill the stadiums. Anyway, what strategy do you think the Uganda Federation uses to fill the stadiums as compared to Kenya? What can we learn from them?
I think they do a great job of making it a great vibe. In Uganda, people like to party. But I think that the way that they've set it up is in a way that it's almost a pre-game, pre-going out kind of vibe, where people have come to enjoy the music. You know, they can have a drink, they can sit down with their friends. It's like a social atmosphere. And by making all of the games in one location, so if they choose YMCA, they might have like 4 games there. People are going to come out from, you know, women, men's, like the whole community kind of gathers around. And when I was there, I mean, they'd have performers and they'd have music and those things. But yeah, it was done in a professional way too. So I think they're just building up momentum. They're trying to do things like get TV sponsorship. But one thing that goes down to the passion too. I think it has to do with the fact that they're motivated to make things better.
Yeah.
You have great photographers in Uganda, journalists that are not even being paid to do certain things. You also have people who are really invested in the top flight leagues. Teams like Power, teams like the Oilers, the Blazers now. People who really want to win.
Yeah.
And especially the City Oilers, they've won the last 7 years in a row. Their owner is extremely invested in winning. It's it's his passion.
It's his passion.
It's not his job. He's not trying to make money out of that. This is his hobby, what he loves to do. And I think you find a lot of people like that, including the president himself. The president, he's a lawyer. He's not trying to make money out of basketball. It's what he loves to do. Obviously, I think a lot of these people would love to be in a position where they are paid to be in the basketball world.
Yeah.
Myself included.
Yeah.
Just because that's what you want to be invested in every day. But I think everyone there is, giving it 100%. They love the game. They love basketball, and that translates to how well things are done.
What's the future for Dankind Academy?
So the future is we build this facility, and it's something that it's creeping closer and closer. So we've registered as an NGO. So I've recently been back to open the bank accounts. All the paperwork has been taken care of. The next phase is fundraising and start building. We want to build. We want to build as soon as possible, but it's really about building a location where, once again, all of these issues that we've just talked about are done away with. We're talking about 4 outdoor courts with fiberglass backboards, with extra baskets so that we can have kids playing on them. We can lower the rims and they use them on Saturdays and Sundays. We want to build this arena where it can be used not just by the top league but by all the leagues. So we want to help the federation continue what they're doing, but take it to a whole other level. Wood floor, fiberglass backboards, just under 4,000 seats in the arena, luxury boxes. We want to be making a location that sponsors we want to be involved with, internationally and domestically. And then from there, then we can finally get to the core of what we've always wanted to do, which is develop the youth so that they can get the best opportunities possible. Obviously, the end goal of Dankind is not just about basketball either. It really is about community development. So regardless of what happens, whether our players become basketball players or whatever they choose to do in life, we want them to have an education, we want them to continue their education, and we want them to give back. So part of the whole idea of Dankind Academy is that we send these guys out all over the world, that they come back and they give back, not just to running the academy and the running cost of the academy, but also coming together as a family. It's always been part of the program to do things to benefit the community at large. Even when I was here in Kenya, as much as we could, we would go into orphanages and we'd go into the slums and we'd do sessions with kids and stuff like that. But we want to get to the point where we're coming together as an alumni and building hospitals, building schools, building libraries, building roads, water pumps, wells, if not pre-planned cities. So the ultimate goal is it's much more than basketball, and at the same time, basketball is the core and the real essence of being able to do all those things. We start off with basketball, but we use it as a vehicle for progress, and we do that by scholarships at the base, whether it's university, whether it's high school, whatever it is, but it's that mix of basketball and education and giving back. That's the future of the academy.
Just as we wrap it up, Kenya is getting into an electioneering period. Campaigns are gearing off, and we've been facing a couple of challenges in terms of electoral violence and all these things. You mentioned about being involved with Hoping for Peace, Dankind, with South Sudanese community. Do you have any message for Kenyans as they as they approach the electioneering period, the campaigning period, just in light of us being all together human beings, apart from the tribal, different tribes and all those things, we are one. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think that's once again at the core of basketball itself too.
Yep.
The real essence of basketball is about teamwork. It's about working together. It's about getting along. It's about hard work. It's a non-contact sport, so it's not supposed to be violent. Like, these are the things that basketball teaches and keeps people off the streets from doing. So instead of engaging in what's different, learn how to come together. And that's really important when it comes to politics. Obviously, as you mentioned, there is tribalism, and politics can separate people. But just like in basketball, how we're all one family at the end of the day, it's got to be the same way throughout the elections too, I think.
So thank you so much, Dan. It was a pleasure having you. And viewers, on the description box, you shall see more links of Dankind Academy, the website, the social media sites. If you want to donate, if you want to get involved with this vision, with this goal to build the community and make it a better place, just click on that website link, click on their social media handles, and you'll get to interact with them and get to know more about them. Until next time, it's your host Jermaine Odhiambo, Wima Sports. See you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I think that went well too.
Thank you.
Thanks.